I tend to see that we are thinking of these AI machines, these large language models, as only intelligence. But most of the time, what we're actually reacting on is the fluency. The answer is arriving fully formed. There is a clear, structured, and confident tone of voice. It feels like it's all been a bit thought through, you can say. So we don't always think of thinking ourselves. Take, for example, if you are asking an LLM for a summary of a topic you sort of know, but not really know that well. It would give you a clear and convincing explanation. There is no hesitation or uncertainty in the answer. Most people won't go and verify afterwards, not because they already have checked it or know something about it, but because it just sounds right.
Welcome to Table Stakes. I'm Michelle Stevens, Course Director at CXM Academy. My guest today is Sunna Silsbæk-Reitz. He's a tech philosopher and data and AI strategist at Demand. He created the Deontological design framework, which applies philosophy to AI ethics. The author of the forthcoming book, Promptism, and he's published in the Journal of AI Law and Regulation on preserving moral agency in AI and medicine. Sunna, welcome to Table Stakes.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Sunna, I invited you because AI is getting really good at sounding like it knows what it's talking about. It writes fluently, it answers confidently, and it feels like it understands you. And that's a problem. Just now, I saw somebody post about that they are going to ask their Claude to do something for them, and it replied, "No, I'm not going to do that for you." So it is really starting to being humanized very well. And that's a problem because fluency is not understanding and confidence is not truth. And the better AI gets at sounding human, the harder it becomes to notice when it's wrong, or worse, when it's making decisions that should never have been delegated to a machine in the first place. You've written that we trust it because it's fluent. But what do you mean by that? And why is it that dangerous?
It's a great question, Michelle. But I tend to see that we are thinking of these AI machines, these large language models, as only intelligence. But most of the time, what we're actually reacting on is the fluency. The answer is arriving fully formed. There is a clear, structured, and confident tone of voice. It feels like it's all been a bit thought through, you can say. So we don't always think of thinking ourselves. Take, for example, if you are asking an LLM for a summary of a topic you sort of know, but not really know that well. It would give you a clear and convincing explanation. There is no hesitation or uncertainty in the answer. Most people won't go and verify afterwards, not because they already have checked it or know something about it, but more, of course, because it just sounds right. And that is actually the shift I have noticed. We are starting to treat this performance as a proxy for truth itself. And the danger here isn't that the AI can be wrong, because we know it can be wrong, but it sounds so right that before we have the time to actually question it, we just go on with it. We nod it along. Once it feels right, we tend to just accept it. So yeah, when fluency becomes this kind of, you can say, in itself, that's a fragile thing to actually build trust on down the line. And it can be repeated time after time in slide decks, in conversation, all over.
Yeah, for me, it raises a deeper question about what we should actually expect from technology in the first place. You've argued that the first duty of technology is not accuracy or efficiency, but care. I think that's a bold claim, but what does that mean in practice?
Oh yeah, most systems today are optimized for accuracy, efficiency. It's about giving the right answer as fast as possible. But that leaves out a more fundamental question in my mind. It's what does this answer actually do to the people receiving it? And to me, this is where I see care comes in. In my perspective, care means designing with the user as a person, not as a data point. It's about context, it's about timing and impact. When we are optimizing, we shouldn't check whether the answer is correct, just that, but also whether it's appropriate Is it understandable? And is it responsible in that moment? So we can take a simple example here. Take a chatbot that can give a perfect, accurate answer about a sensitive issue, about your health or finance situation, or even about, let's say, an organizational layoff situation. But it could deliver that in a flat, confident tone without acknowledging uncertainty or consequences. It can still cause harm. So care isn't about being soft. It's about, you can say, taking responsibility for how information actually lands on the receiving end of things. At times, that means also adding some nuances into the output, and sometimes it's meaning slowing down and actually show these uncertainties. So yeah, you can say, in my perspective, the first duty of technology, as I boldly claim, isn't about being right, but it's about handling people with care while being right.
Yeah. Now with the rise of robotics, where you can see that AI or large language models and Gen AI are speeding up our robotics space. Is that becoming more important now that that element of care is in there? Because yeah, these things that have the strength of a human and probably even stronger, they are going to roam in our homes. For some, it is a great prospect and can have its place. But on the other hand, it is a free roaming thinking thing that is in your home.
But you can also see that the technology is growing that fast at the moment. We have always advanced technology, also in healthcare and stuff like that, but that have been slowly growing. This is kind of happening not as a big bang, but the exponential implementation of this will just take some more consideration on how to actually implement this into day-to-day work and daily work. You can say we have always use technology for healthcare. You have the stethoscope that actually made some barrier between the doctor and the patient. Now that barrier is being bigger with all the monitoring, and maybe the AI will give the first answer to the patient. So you have less contact with a real person. So the time you are actually spending with a doctor, with a nurse, and a healthcare person will be more valuable, and we should actually care for that.
Yeah, it connects directly to a framework you've built. Most people never have heard of deontology. Some people have difficulties pronouncing it, like me this morning. So let's get into that. You've created the deontological design framework for someone who's never studied philosophy. What is deontology, and how does it apply to the way that we build and deploy AI?
Yeah, deontological design is based on, as you say, deontology. I have problem myself sometimes pronouncing it. It's developed by a German philosopher, Immanuel Kant, 300 years ago. But deontology means about more than it sounds more complicated than it actually is. At its core, in the central, it just means that things you are responsible. There is things that you are responsible for, no matter the outcome. In tech, we usually think about outcomes. This is the utilitarian perspective, where you can say the ends justifies all means. Did this improve conversion? Did this increase engagement? Or does it just make things faster? Deontological design asks a different question in my mind. It's about what we owe to the people that is using these systems. And that's why I'm talking about this design framework. I'm still developing. It's a living document, you can say. But to me, it's about building some obligations, user obligation, directly into the systems that is actually constraints and not just principles. So, for example, a system shouldn't manipulate users even if it improves their results. It should signal uncertainty even if that means that it looks less confident. And it should allow human oversight even if it slow things down a little bit. So in practice, it's about, you can say, building these systems that respect people as ends in themselves, even if it's inconvenient for the companies around.
Yeah, to me, that sounds like if you apply those principles, that it will actually also produce better results. For instance, I would love to hear from my Gen AI if it's not sure about something, because sometimes there are fact checks that you need to do. And then they say, yeah, I'm very confident. And then you go and look it up for yourself and you find, that it's all made up.
Yeah, it's a pleasing machine, you can say. It's just agreeable all the time. It's built to say that you had the best idea ever. It's a backclapper, you can say.
Yeah. And I also see that has some adverse effects on people who are prone to that kind of talk, people who are getting stuck. I always say that we have these thinking pots these days with algorithms that has put us into a corner. And I think that I see that with these LLMs, it is actually getting stronger because you are constantly reinforced in your thinking. And that is, worrisome, let's put it that way.
I mean, yeah, I'm completely agreed with you, Michelle. It reinforces the things you're already doing. So if you are a lazy user in quotation, you will get a lazy output from the machines. But if you are an advanced user, actually know how to actually prompt things and interpret things and actually check the sources, you can get much better. But it's depending on the user. So you can say all this new literacy that is on the horizon is on the user end themselves. And as I see it, none of these applications or tools out there are actually equipping the users themselves to become better. They're just giving them a tool and say, go figure.
Yeah, figure it out for yourself. I'm blessed with a training in journalism. I'm a trained journalist, and that has helped me tremendously over the last 3 to 4 years. Because you need to torture your answer until they give in, and until you actually have that output that actually delivers something. And I must say that I hope that many more people will actually apply those principles all the time, because that is going to be very important in the near future. Recently, we've seen in Belgium some cases of public figures who made a speech, and that was just riddled with quotes and citations of people who never said that. So that was very problematic, and I would not expect that from people, who were at the head of a university, for instance, but it did happen. So I also think that this technology is very clever in such a way that it is built to trick us sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It is built to trick us. It's also built for, you could say, this reinforcement learning it's built on. So you will, as a user, be happier with an output that is confirming your statement instead of the opposite. Of course, we are building for this in endorphin treatment in our brain, so we will appreciate getting back that you did a good job, Michelle. Come on, the best idea ever.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so coming back to our discussion, it is not about about measuring outcomes or utilitarian, as you said, in tech. It's about the nature of the action itself. Now that changes the conversation entirely for me. But let's bring that a little bit closer to our audience. When CX teams, customer experience teams, deploy AI, whether it's in chatbots or personalization engines or predictive models, where do they most commonly cross an ethical line without actually realizing it?
I don't think any CX teams coming into work really want to cross any ethical lines. I know that. I work with CX people from time to time. It usually happens through, you can say, in my perspective, optimization. You try to make things smoother, more relevant, or more engaging. And step by step, you are removing friction. But sometimes that friction is actually where the user is pausing and thinking for themselves. So if we're taking this personalization, it can drift into manipulation, in my perspective. You know just enough about the user to nudge them, but they don't really see that happening. Empathy can be simulated. The system can say, I understand how you feel. But there is no really understanding behind these words, and there is no accountability behind them. And when there is confidence, system present answers without uncertainty, which make a sense of authority that isn't always justified. So you can see the CX teams out there, it's bound to happen if we are just pushing them with tighter deadlines because we are in a deadline rush all the time. But I will imagine that we should somehow also give the developer, the CX teams, some time to actually think about these things and not just rush them for the next deadline in 2 weeks or sprint time or anything, but actually set aside some time for actually discussing these things and also bringing different perspective into the room. So as you said, I have a background in history and philosophy from university. I work in medtech, that with a lot of engineers and audiologists and a bunch of different people, but actually having all of these people together in a room creates some other discussion than it will have been with just engineers. So also having this diverse set of perspective and have the time to actually discuss.
Yeah, I think diversity is a very good cure against tunnel vision. But sometimes, as you said, things happen not out of ill will. There was on the podcast, we've discussed it a few times by now. There was this case of Boots, the UK pharmacist, who is actually using their loyalty information, all the information that is in their loyalty program, and worked with a business school, I think it was, to identify if people were probably going to have cancer in the near future. And for me, that was like, okay, I can see where that comes from. If you have the data, then you want to prevent people from actually developing the disease, you can do some interesting things with that. And then on the other hand, there is this ethical question as well, like, do I have a contract with my pharmacist to do something like that with that data? And do I have a social contract with them that they are going to inform me proactively on that one? That is that. And again, I think it is not out of ill will that they do that.
No, of course. And you could say most consent forms is also very, very technical. It's not in layman's terms, so you actually know what you are signing up for as a user. I always advocating for having these consent forms at the lowest possible level of understanding. So it can actually be understood by, you can say, not a minor, but a person just turned 18. So they do not necessarily have any education or anything, but it should be there in layman's terms. And it should be as easy to revoke a consent as to opting in.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Now, the tricky part is that most of these failures are invisible. They're hidden behind good metrics. So the question becomes, how do you actually do something about this inside an organization that doesn't have a philosopher on staff? For a CX or for a CX person or leader who wants to take ethics seriously but doesn't know how to make it operational, where do they start? How would you go about this?
As I see it, most organizations start with principles, but principles rarely change any behavior on their own. So I propose that we, instead of asking what are our company values, what are our team values, we should start by asking where could this system actually mislead someone? Where might it actually might create some false confidence? Where might the user stop and think and just accept the answer as it is? The shift can shift ethics for something abstract into something you can actually see and work. So you should somehow, there is a lot of frameworks on the market, so you can actually look into what questions could be asked during different part of the design phase. So you can actually go around and not just think about values, but actually think about real questions that can hit the users out there. So it's not it's not about what the model decided, but who is actually accountable also for the behavior. Because most of the time, the responsibility of an predictive engine or a personalization mechanism is not into one team, but scattered across layers in the organization. But there should be someone in the organization that is actually accountable for the output. That is actually willing to stop the progress if we can see that is going in the wrong direction. So to me, it's about not fixing everything all at once. If you have been working with a user journey, a customer journey at all, it's scattered across a shitload, for my friends, of systems and blueprints and interaction and interviews and all that. So you shouldn't look at the whole journey. Take one point, a moment of truth maybe, and go in and try to be showing that uncertainty more clearly, add some transparency if needed, or giving the user a moment to actually choose rather than just be nudged.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult, but ethics becomes real in the moment where you are actually willing to say to yourself and to your teammates, just because we can make this smoother, should we?
Yeah. That is a fantastic way to put it. One thing that just popped into my mind, I read a poll by Rachel Trickey yesterday, who had a question. If something goes wrong with a system, and it was a Gen AI system, who takes accountability? Is that the person using the model? Is that the organization deploying the model? Or is that the organization who built the model? Was doubting between all three. I think I chose the organization deploying it, who should take responsibility, but it could either just as well, it could have been the other two, in my opinion.
It's also setting up some guardrails between the ones that have trained the model and the ones deploying the models. If that two different companies, they should also have some kind of agreement of the level of training materials and certainties. And I'm also talking about a lot about, you can say, worldviews into these models, because some of the models out there are pretty easy to understand where they come from. If you're taking Elon Musk Grok, for example, I pretty much know their political stand, and the same with DeepSeek from China. I know what it stands for, so it's easy for me to interpret what is actually true and false, what can I rely on, what can I not. But take ChatGPT, Claude, then it's becoming more blurry on what it actually stands on. Also because these models are, as we have spoken before, is also agreeing machine. So it will also take your stand of view and amplify it. So it's more difficult to actually form an opinion on what is right or wrong in that sense.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our time is up, Sunna. I find it a pity that we're already at the end, but thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Michel.
If I can recap the conversation, then the question is whether AI can do it. The question is whether it should. So thanks to all of you watching and listening. AI is getting smarter every day. The question is whether we're getting wiser. That's table stakes. Until next time, here or in one of our courses.